cameras. Ooh, that's recording. That should not be recording. Shut that off. Um, let's see. Make sure this camera over here is, nope. All right, I don't know why he's not working. This is not working because I didn't turn it on. All right. So there we go. I told you it was going to be informal. I'm just here hanging out. I got a whole box of Evans drumheads today from Diodario, and it's time to change some drumheads. I apologized enough for them yesterday, or was it yesterday we did it, the last time we did one of these? It seems like the days just kind of melt together. But I'm going to change all of these tom heads, and I'm going to be talking about a completely different selection of heads that I'm using this time, why I'm doing that. And we're also going to cover some basics of drum tuning, at least things that work for me in the studio. And most of these will also get you for your live setup as well. It's just that in the studio, the tolerances are a lot tighter, especially under the microscope of these microphones and recording software. If there's a problem at all, it's going to show up when you're here in the studio. So I'm going to take you through this, and while I'm here and we're just informally hanging out, feel free to type any kind of comment in the box below, and I'll try and keep my eye on the laptop that I've got sitting here for those questions so that I can just answer them as we go. So let's get right into it. Let's don't really waste a whole lot of time. What heads am I using this evening? Well, you're wondering. I'm going to let you know. You don't care that did that, do you? Stop. I told you this was just informal. All right, so one of the brand new choices for me this evening is a set of these Evans UV2s, which is a double ply head. We're going to use this on the batter, and it's got a different kind of coating from any of the other Evans heads that you've ever seen in your life. If you've used the UV1s, which is the single ply version, then you're already familiar with these. If you're not, I could have done a little bit more research on these to tell you exactly what the coating process is, but I think they're holding that a pretty tight secret. If I just read right off the box, it just says UV2 drumheads feature Evans' patented UV cured coating process. So my guess is that they're using UV light. No sound. Why is there no sound? I got sound going out, Carl. Maybe double check and make sure that you're not muted in the bottom. Check the bottom. Hang on. Tell Carl to check in the bottom. All right. Let's see. You know what? I ought to check that on my phone. Since we're just hanging out, that bothers me that it wouldn't work the same. Okay, cool. He's got it now. Awesome. Well, I don't have to check it on my phone. Great. So what I was saying was we're trying these UV2s. I was reading this. So it says that they use a UV curing coating process over 2 plies of reinforced 7mm film, extensively tested with some of the heaviest hitters. These heads set a new standard for durability in one of the most tried and true 2-ply forms. They make for a versatile snare drum head or a warm, focused tom head with lots of attack. So all of that marketing speak, let me tell you my experience with the UV1s. My USA Custom, my main USA Custom kit has a set of UV1s on it right now. And I'm actually using the EC2s as my bottom head. Kind of a strange choice, I know, but it makes for a really nice round focused sound. Here's the thing that I noticed immediately about the UV2s. The UV2s have what I call a prepared sound. It doesn't sound like I just slapped the head on. It sounds like I've maybe done a little bit with some tape or something to sort of prep the head a little bit and to get it focused. It definitely has a different sound I wish, other than telling you it just sounds more studio-like, I wish I could tell you what that means. Here's the one thing that I will tell you that I'm throwing out the window. I'm throwing out the window the idea that single ply heads are for anybody with touch, any kind of touch, and that double ply heads are just for mongrels that just want to beat the crap out of drums. I'm really throwing that whole thing out. The marketing speak really does tend to lean on that. The fact that, these are meant for really heavy, they're not meant for heavy players. They'll do better with heavy players than, say, a single ply head. In this case, as I've witnessed from the UV2s, the UV1s, even with a double ply head like this EC2S, I had some session work over the weekend that I did, and I was really hitting hard. Really coming up and hitting hard because that was the sound for the track. And I've got some little itty bitty divots. I can tell where I really did lay into these. And this is a double ply head. So that whole idea that it holds up, and my technique's good. My technique doesn't suck, and I know how to let the stick rebound. It's just that at a certain point, you're going to hit the drum hard enough that the film is going to distort. It's going to stretch a little bit. The thing that I noticed immediately about the UV1s is that something about this coating helps to keep the mylar from stretching so much, especially when you hit it really hard. I think I've got one dent in a UV1 head that's on a snare drum, and oddly enough, it didn't come from me hitting it. The drum actually kind of, I think it fell over. It hit something. Anyway, it ran into a cymbal stand, and the cymbal stand did that. So luckily, it didn't break the snare drum, and all the world's good there. But so before I put this head on, or as I'm starting to put this head on, I want to talk for a second about choosing the right heads for your drums, because one thing that I noticed with younger players, especially younger players that are financially challenged. I'm an older player, and sometimes I can be financially challenged. One of the things that I have noticed is that most drummers don't take the time to experiment and really find what the best heads are going to be for the drums that they have. You go to a store and you buy a set of drum heads, you're sort of committed to that drum head, especially if you're buying for an entire drum set all at once. So here's the thing that I would admonish you to do. Take whatever your main rack tom is, preferably something in a 12, and maybe buy yourself 2 or 3 choices of batter head for the top. And get wildly different varieties. If you're not brand loyal, then that's even better. If you are brand loyal to a particular thing, then maybe you're going to get, say, an Evans coated G1 that's a single ply coated head. Maybe you're going to get an EV1 or an EV2, depending on if you want single or double ply. And then maybe you do a G2, or in this case, this is the EC2, which is a double ply head. The EC2, on top of being a double ply head, has this little funky little mesh ring thing that goes around that's really just, it's super thin. It's not like those old Remo tone ring deals. This really just helps to knock some of the overtone out and focus the sound a little. And I can probably keep using this 10-inch on a live kit maybe. It's not too terribly beat in. It's these other 3 that are. But I would tell you, buy 3 different types of head for the top of your drum and try each one on one drum, whatever your main rack tom is. If you've got a 10-12 up set up, maybe pick the 12, because it's going to have a little more depth, a little more resonance. You're going to get an idea of what it's going to do a little bit better on the higher toms and as well on the lower toms. And then try each one of those heads to see what the result is from each one that you put on. They're going to be a little bit different. And in this case, I'll be honest, for as long as I've had these drums, these are Gretsch New Classic drums. This is a 6-ply rock maple, I believe. This isn't the usual maple. I mean, this isn't the usual, maple gum maple setup that most of the Gretsch drums are. This is, I believe, 6 plies is just straight up maple. It's American rock maple, and I have yet to really find a head combination for this entire kit that I'm really, really happy with. Either something becomes too dead, or it's too ringy, or it doesn't seem to, and this is the part that's hard to describe. It doesn't just seem to jive with the drum. It sounds like a drum, but it doesn't sound like that's the drum sound I'm looking for. So we're going to try these UV2s today and see if that's going to get us in the ballpark. And then I'm also going to change the bottom heads. Now, most people don't give enough credence or enough thought about their bottom heads. Some people haven't changed their bottom head since 1978. They just don't really see the point. And it's not that this bottom head is really all that worn out. It's that I want to try something different. So I'm going to hang on to these. I've got coated G1s on the bottoms of these. Overall, it's a good general purpose bottom head. It's probably got a little bit less overtone and a little bit less sustain than just a regular clear head. But on the whole, it does exactly what you think a coated single ply head would do. That's the great thing about the Evans G1s. You can pretty much, like a Waffle House, you know exactly what you're going to get when you buy it. So we're going to experiment, though, by putting on some, coated G2s. Now, I'm one of those that for the longest time I thought, why would I ever put a double ply head on the resonant side of my drum? It's not going to be nearly as resonant. It's going to choke the drum out and sound awful. I could not have been more wrong. On the kit that I'm using for most of my sessions, the USA Customs, it's the purple USA Customs. I think that tom, well, you can't really see it there, but floor tom's there. There's another floor tom down there. It's just like an early 2002 USA Custom. I almost forgot where I was going with this. Bottom heads. So the UV2s, I put coated UV2s on the bottom of those with the not UV2s, coated EC2s because they've got the little ring on them. Put those on the bottom and put the UV1s on the top, and it's a really, really good sound. I don't know if it's the sound that I want to keep for that kit, but I used it on plenty of sessions, and it sounded great. It almost sounds a little too prepared. It's almost like I can't get a wild sound, like a ringy-bongy, crazy. If I want to experiment with the sound of the drums, that head combination is not going to let me do it. It's going to pretty much dial it in and give me just a nice, pure, focused tone at a variety of different tuning ranges. So we're going to see what happens here. And really, that's part of what I'm trying to do with this kit. I want something that has enough sustain, but not too much sustain. I would love to get to the point where I don't have to put on moon gels or any kind of gaff tape or anything like that. So we're going to see if we'll get there. Now, one thing I noticed kind of immediately with these UV2s versus the EC2s is that they sit on the bearing edge a little differently. I don't know if this collar is different or if there's a little bit more, if maybe the actual hoop itself is a little larger, but I can tell you right away there's more play in this head in the UV2 than there is in the EC2. So that's a good thing because that allows me to kind of move this around and find just the right spot to get that head to seat well. When I talk about seating well, I'm talking about the head sitting as flat as possible on your bearing edge. If you've got a perfectly flat bearing edge and there's no divots in it, there's no chunks, you didn't drop it when you're taking one of the heads off or didn't take some kind of weird shot when you're traveling, you would hope that these bearing edges are completely flat all the way around and you're not feeling any burrs, you're not feeling any holes or divots, you're not feeling any dips. Obviously this drum is completely in round, so it's not an oval-shaped drum or an egg-shaped drum. So when I just throw that head on, it's got a little more play side to side, and it allows me to just kind of move this head around until I feel like, yeah, that's centered on the drum. And if I put my fingernail up under here, I feel a little bit of a gap between the shell or the wrap on the shell and the head. So it definitely feels like it comes out just a little further. One of the things about these new classic drums that's a little different, and I don't know exactly why, if there's a thicker wrap or something. These drums can be picky about what heads they'll take. There are heads that fit too snug, almost so snug that they won't slide down far enough to be tuned well. So this really does feel good. So when I put that head on, I try and put it in a way that it feels like it's centered on the head really, really well, or centered on the bearing edge really well. And then one of the things that I do when I put this rim back on is I try and make sure that all of my tension rods are pulling straight down. If this gets cocked a little bit either way, see if I can go to camera for a second. So let's say it's a little off one way or the other. You know, the rim is spun a little. I'll get my words right. You're going to get the tension rod not really pulling straight down. So I'm making sure that all my tension rods are pulling straight down really, really well. And these tension rods already have a little bit of, I think it's got some Vaseline on it. I forgot what I don't have to lubricate the tension rods very much. But usually when I do, I just put a tad bit of Vaseline on them. It just helps them to go into the threading a little bit better in that lug casing. Yeah, so I just get it as hand tight as I can get it with my fingers, just like that. And then when I do that, there should be no tone. It's completely slack. Yeah, no tone at all. And so then, now, the Gretsch drums, if you don't know, are different than every other manufacturer's drums in the fact that on these smaller toms, I only have 5 tension rods or 5 lugs to work with. So I can't go straight across like I would do, say, on some of these floor toms or a snare drum. There's not another tension rod directly across. So I end up doing the one closest to me. I go to the one slightly to the left, almost like I'm like the left part of the leg of a Y. And then I come back down. Put it in the camera while I do this. Then I'll come back down, and I'm just giving it a half a turn. So I start here. I go to this next one. I go down here, and I'm doing a half a turn. I go here, doing a half a turn. Go in there, doing half a turn. Now, depending on this drum, my one critique about the new classics, I think they could have put a slightly longer tension rod in here because it just feels like it catches a little quick, and maybe I don't have as much room to run before it's really starting to clamp down on the head. I don't know. It feels like the tension rods ought to be a little bit longer. So even with that half turn, I'm pretty close to everything being the same. Close. Not exact, but close. All right, so now with the smaller drums, I'm only going to give it about maybe a third of a turn, or just enough to where I feel it catch. You'll feel where it starts to pull down on the head. You hear that one's a little bing, bing, boom, bing, boom. Now, I did a little bit of a turn, and that didn't affect it much. But it may be one of these lugs across from it, or tension rods across from it. Ah, you hear that one. Go down and come back up on that one. It's all pretty close. overall, that's going to be probably a little high for me. But that's okay. I don't know if this is superstition for me or not, but when I first put the head on, I tend to go a little higher than I need to. And I let it sit there for just a bit. Now, if the drum's got, if the drum has more, I'm listening for the pure or the primary tone, but if for some reason your drum, you can't hear past all the overtones, then what you can do is you can just lightly put your finger right on the center of the drum, just lay, ever so slightly, and then just tap. Don't push down on the rim. Just, I'm just anchoring my hand, but I'm not pushing down, and then. Pretty close. It's a little under. That's pretty close all the way around. Now, again, tighter than I really want, but for now, it's going to have to do. All right, so now you can hear how low, and that's definitely out of tune. I'm going to take off this bottom head now. And I don't really need to do it. See, that's one of the things about slightly longer tension rods. Just feel like, to me, they go in a little bit more before I really start to feel the tension. It just feels like I've got a little bit more room to run before I'm running into. I get to turn the key a little bit more, and as a result, when I'm tuning lower, it's almost like I get to a lower tuning. Right now, I get to a higher tuning than I'm used to getting to on a drum. So, yeah. So what I need to do is I need to make a call to Andy Foote over at Drum Supply House and get a tension rod that's just a little bit longer, and put those on all the way around. Put that on a list of stuff to do. Oh wait, I don't have a secretary. I don't have an assistant. Note to self. So, yeah. So we're just going to pull this one off. And this may sound like complete garbage. I mean, this really is the one thing about selecting a G2 as my bottom head is if it sounds like garbage, I can pull it off and put the G1 back on. One of the things I don't see it on the drum so much. Anytime you're changing these bottom heads, you're probably going to have a bunch of dust and dirt and stuff. Kind of knock that stuff off. And in this case, this head's got just some particles from the padding in one of my road cases. That head's still got plenty of life in it. It might make its way onto a teaching kit or something. We'll see. All right, so just make sure that's clean. I kind of right now it sounds like a timbale, but I'm just cleaning anything that fell out of there. Listen to that. Man, that was a timbale. Yeah, you could have a good time with that. Don't try and do a single stroke roll with it. Try and hold a drum key. I just learned that. All right, so the next thing. So these are the coated G2s. I'm going to pull this 10-inch head out. Yeah, if this G2 doesn't sound great on the bottom, or if I don't like the UV2 on these drums, this can always become the batter head, and I can put the other reso heads back on there. Or I can walk back out in the hall and see if I've got some other option. I'm just going to make sure I don't have any dust or dirt or anything in there. Yeah, depending on how long it's been since you've changed your heads, this could be messy. So again, if you got any questions, feel free to type them in the comment box. I enjoy this. So, as I was saying before, most students, most younger players, and really, I'm just going to kind of the Evans key has this cool little knurled thing on the top. Let me see if I can show it. It's not going to be in focus, is it? Yeah, because I'm not using autofocus. Anyway, the Evans drum key is probably one of the best ones there because this finger tight thing can be a slow go, but if you just grab the knurl and just spin it, it'll spin it and gets it almost finger tight, and then I just finish it off that way. Save a little time. I know some of you guys like to use your drills and your drill bits and stuff. That scares the crap out of me. So this one, for some reason, doesn't want to spin into there, though. Probably needs a little Vaseline. Ooh, don't fall on that rim, bruh. Good way to bust up a head, bub. All right. Yeah, I think buying some new tension rods for this is going to be the next thing I do. All right, same kind of thing. I got it finger tight. Then I'm just going to gradually go like a half a turn and then slowly go into 1/3 turns. This one is cracking a little. Now, occasionally, if a drum's giving me problems, I'll get out the tune bot, or I've got one of those drum dials. I can hear this head settling in the collar, so I'm probably going to, again, do the same thing where I go a little tight. Don't be nervous about the cracking sound. Again, it's just usually in these things there's some kind of glue or something that's got to settle. It really just depends on how the head's made. Now, out of the gate, that's not going to sound great. Unless you like real. Now, if you're a jazz player, if you play bebop, I just nailed that sound for you. But that's not what we're going for here. We're going for a nice studio sound. So with this, I'm going to check it. That one still seems low. All right, so I'm going to let that sit for a little bit. I'll come back down to here. Already I can tell, just from tuning high, that's the other reason I sort of do this, is I can hear the tone or the pure pitch of the drum, and that lets me know, gives me an approximation of how much resonance I'm going to get. So I'm just going to slowly back this thing down, not as far as I had it as far as being finger tight, but I'm going to back it down considerably. And then I'm going to pick one of these pitches that I think, either I'll pick the pitch that I think resonates the best when I tap it, or maybe it's sort of settled into where it wants to be pretty close on most of these points. And so I'll pick if there's 3 of 5 that are pretty much the same pitch, that's the pitch that we're going to stay with for now. That was a little low. Actually, you know what? I'm going to come down on all of these. A little high, go down. So you never want to tune. You never want to tune down to the note. What you want to do if you want to go down on a tension rod, you're going to tune down past the pitch you want and then bring it back up into pitch. And then gradually add tension until you get to where you want it to be. one's a little low. All right. And we were talking about reso heads earlier. So the thing that I didn't realize for the longest time, till I was in my early 20s, is how much the type of head you're using on the bottom and how well in tune it is and the exact pitch that you use, how all of those affect the overall tone of the drum. I just thought it looked better with a bottom head on it. There we go. See how it just sort of settled right into the right tuning? Just sort of, wow, okay. That's pretty good. It's a pretty good place to start. And you hear it's got a little bit of pitch bend to it. Just boom, boom, boom. I don't know how it sounds in this headset mic, but in the room it sounds pretty good. That was still... And again, one of the things I'm going to try and do is I'm trying to go a little lower than normal. I want to see how low I can get these things. So one of the reasons I'm reheading this kit, other than the fact that I blew out the heads on it, is this is about to be the gig kit for a new gig that I'm going to be doing in 2021. And for this gig, live gig, I'm actually going to be adding an 8-inch tom. So it'll be 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. It'll be the first time I've taken out a kit that big. And so it's okay if I tune a little higher on the rack toms, because I won't have to rely just on one rack tom or even two rack toms for my rack tom part of my tonal spectrum. That 8's going to be fairly high. I'm not changing it tonight. In fact, I may just for a while leave the heads that are on it because it's hardly gotten used. I don't really use an 8-inch tom a lot. But I'll have 8, 10, 12, and that gives me a nice spread. I can go a little lower with the 12 and then maybe a little higher with the 8 and get an even wider, a wider choice of pitches. So now, with this suspension mount that Gretsch uses, there's not supposed to be any difference between the drum on the stand or off the stand, but I'll tell you there's a difference between the sound of the drum on the stand and off the stand. There just is. I've recorded it, so if you want to come over and listen to the difference, I've got recordings of it. It's different. If you got a good memory for what it sounded like when I just hit it, and now that I put it on the stand, yeah. That's not bad, actually. That really, really sounds good. That's closer to the sound that was in my brain. So a lot of this is it's sort of a meeting of the minds. So now you can't take, say, a Pearl export kit that's got 12, 13, and 16 and make it sound like, who do I want to pick that's Roy Haynes or Max Roach? Or, I mean, you can tune those big tubby drums up and you can get a really high pitch out of them, but that's not what those drums were built to do. Those drums were built to be rock drums. If you got a Pearl export kit, which a ton of people do, you're not gonna, it's not the best choice for a bebop kit. And it doesn't matter which head you put on there or how you tune it. You can get something that gets you in the ballpark, but it's never going to be ideal. And every drum set, even with the difference between this new classic kit, I've got a Brooklyn kit here that's the same sizes, and then I've got a USA custom kit, same sizes, 22-inch kick. This one's this is a 24 that's on here right now, but one of the kick drums that comes with this new classic kit's a 22. There's a 22 for the USA Custom, 22 for the Brooklyn. And every one of those kits sounds different, even with the same heads. Part of it is the shell construction. Part of it is the hoops that are on there. These die-cast hoops have a different sound from the 302 hoops that are on the Brooklyn. That contributes to it. But I like to get a little bit more woo-woo about it. And I think that every drum set has a personality. And part of your job as a drummer is to really get to know your drum set. And that's part of communing with this drum set, is to sit and you got to ask it, what does it want? And I'm not talking to my drum here. I'm really just. It's not like I'm holding this drum up and saying, "What heads would you like? Would you like lemon with your tea?" That's not what we're doing here. That's not what we're doing here. What I'm doing is I'm putting on a set of heads, and I'm listening to what the head does, what the tuning range does, how the drum speaks to me. Like, I'm going to see if I can go a little lower with this. Will it be okay with me going lower with it? Not every drum set's going to do that. And if I go lower on that batter head, oh, I think I just found something. Ooh. It's got a little bit of a bark to it on the attack, but it's got a nice even tone. Boom, boom. Ooh, I think I just accidentally, by pulling that off and telling you to commune with the drum, I think I just found where this drum wants to sit. It sounded good in the tuning range I was there before. I say, Gretsch, renowned for a long time. Sounded nice, punchy with the G1s and G2s. Yeah, the Gretsch Renowns, I will say, I've got a couple of them in the other room, and they're pretty versatile in terms of what heads you can put on there. Now, there's going to be a different character with, say, a G1 or a G2. The G1s are always, like I was saying earlier, the G1s on a Rezo head, it's sort of like, you know what you're going to get. It's the Hershey bar of bottom heads. You know when you put that in that Hershey bar of chocolate in your mouth, you know what it's going to taste like. Now, is it, I don't know, the best chocolate you've ever had in your life? It depends. It depends on if you like Hershey chocolate or not. But for me, I know what a Hershey bar is going to taste like, and everywhere I ever go, I always get a Hershey bar, and it always tastes exactly the same. And I know what that's going to be, and that's those G1s. It's a nice round resonant tone without too much overtone. You can tune it up and get a little something out of it. And then, yeah, the G2s or EC2s on the batter, I've gotten to where more and more, not for durability, but for tone, I like the double ply heads. I like the fact that I don't have to apply tape as much. On these, for some reason, this kit didn't really like the EC2s as much, and so I had to do a little bit of damping with some moon gels. But again, that was just I had a brand new set of EC2s. I needed to rehead it for some sessions. So which head is Dove Chocolate? That's a good question. Maybe the coated G1 is the Hershey chocolate and the clear is the Dove Chocolate. Used to, Dove Chocolate was like this really high-end thing, and my wife's been buying it now the last few Valentines, and I'm like, it's just another kind of like commercial brand chocolate. It's not like going to a chocolatier. Like there's a chocolatier in Duluth. I played on at least one single for him. He's a songwriter, and yeah, there's nothing that tastes like that chocolate. That's a completely different experience. That's like out of this world. Now, when I get the right heads and the right tuning and everything's sitting right, it's like going to a great chocolatier. It's kind of the same experience. But yeah, part of this process, and I don't think enough drummers spend time, is communing with the drum and asking it, what do you want? When you decide to buy 3 different batter heads or a couple of different types of Rezo heads, and you put those things on there, and you try some different tuning ranges, and you kind of memorize, have a running card file going in your mind of what those tones are, you're asking the drum, what do you want? What do you like? What would you prefer? And also, you're finding out what this drum can do, because most of these drums can do a lot of different things. It's just a matter of which one of those things do you want right now. And for me, I want, for this gig that I'm going for, I've got a specific kind of rock sound in my mind that's kind of a 70s rock sound that's a little more open. That's not completely dead like a single-headed tom, but that's a little more resonant, but it's focused. Like, single-head concert toms are really, really focused sound. What would happen if I had, concert toms with a little bit more sustain to them and a little more roundness to them? So I'm getting the attack so far with this V2 on the top and a G2 coated on the bottom. Both of them are coated. I'm getting in the ballpark of what I'm looking for. We'll put the regular studio mics up in just a little bit and see if I can give you some idea what that really sounds like. But yeah, that's so that's the 10. And again, I told you it sounds different on the stand for whatever reason. Oh, that's good. Yeah, we're in a ballpark. I think that this drum set is gonna like this drumhead choice. So let's go on to the 12 and let's. In my experience, the 12 has always been the one that I have to fuss with the most for whatever reason. This one's pretty dang beat. I really have to futz around with the 12 a lot, and but when I get it, man, it's always my favorite drum size when I get it right. It's sort of like my little brother. When we were growing up, we would fight tooth and nail, and I was awful, that kid. But he was my brother, and I could pick on my brother, but you couldn't pick on my brother. And so I might argue with my brother in one breath and be defending him from a bully in the next breath. He'll never admit to that because he's going to tell you that he beat the bullies up. This one's pretty beat in. I'm going to hang on to it though because maybe a student could still get something out of it. Let's see. So UV2 for the 12. Let's see what happens. He's probably going to watch this later and he's going to comment on that. I guarantee you. All right, let's see. Yeah, same kind of thing. That's got more play in it than the EC2 had. I've got a little bit more room to sort of move this thing around and find the right spot to put it in. That feels pretty well centered. I like that. I'm not tuning to any specific pitches or intervals. I know some guys are into that. I'm definitely more. I'm more about what feels good to me, and then once I get the full kit running, I may have to go a little up or a little down to really dial in the interval from drum to drum to drum, up and down the sequence. But for me, I'm not really. Usually with rack toms, I'm not pulling out the tune bot or the drum dial. It's usually the floor toms. It's those lower pitches that can be harder to hear sometimes, depends on what head you're using. And usually with the rack toms, I don't often find myself having to pull that out. All right, so same thing we did here. I'm going to go about a half a turn, and let's put it over in the upper camp. So I did this one first. That's going to be my starting place right here to my left. I'm going to go up in this little Y-type pattern. Half a turn. Half a turn. Half a turn. All right, so now I've actually got a little bit of tension on the... It's already coming into tension a little bit. So yeah, now I'm going to go around. So this one's a little lower. All right, so that's what I call the magic tension rod right there. This thing sounded like it was out of tune in a few different places. And then just by turning this one tension rod, everything just sort of went right into place. So just with where I'm at with there, I can tell you I'm pretty close. So just having the difference in the reso heads, I don't think you can tell by this microphone here, but this has got that bark that I'm looking for, that almost like a single-headed tom bark, but it's got that pitch bend and that resonance that comes from having a reso head. This has all of that, but with more sustain. And if I were to put this full kit up to record with, I would probably end up putting a little bit of something on the reso head to kill it just a little, to give it a little more of, to shorten that note up a little bit. So I have a feeling, and I should probably get some Windex for this. That looks awful. I have a feeling that the G2 on these bottom heads is going to also be just what the doctor ordered. So this one has a lot of fuzz on it from the packing from one of my road cases. So give me 1 second. I'm going to get a paper towel, and I'm going to treat you to this camera here where you can look at these beautiful Gretsch Classic drums. And I'm going to find some. Oh, well, there's Windex. Let me get some paper towels. I think I can still talk. I'm on this wireless mic. I can still talk. I have to be careful that I don't go to the bathroom and flush the toilet. That would be really embarrassing. So, yeah. So this is one of those where whichever. Oh, there's my water. Whichever road case I was in, I think this one's been in one of my SKB cases, and it's just got the foam is deteriorated to the point where it's just shedding all kinds of foam and stuff. So we're gonna clean that while we're at it. If you just joined us, I'm changing drum heads and talking about my process, what I'm listening for, all those things, and anything else you want to talk about. I can't really talk about sports very much because I don't really watch sports a whole lot. I tried to watch a little more basketball this year. That lasted about a week. Let's see. Bearing edge wax or anything similar. Sometimes. On snare drums, definitely. For some reason, it just seems to work better. With these, I don't really use any bearing edge wax. I haven't really felt the need to. Now, I say that. The first time I put a set of heads on, I probably put some bearing edge wax. I've got a beeswax bar around here somewhere. The first time I ever put a set of heads on here, I probably ran some beeswax on it, and then it's just whatever's left residually after that. The great thing about these drums, and it was one of the reasons why I snatched them up when I found them, is that the bearing edges on these things were really, really good. One of the things that the wax and stuff does is it fills in any kind of problems with your bearing edge. So if you've got a little divot, if you've got a little nick in there, if it wasn't sanded right or whatever, that beeswax can help with that problem. And in the case of these new classics, man, the bearing edge on these things, when I looked at the bearing edge on any of these drums, it was just so well done, and there's no filler, no nothing, and it's completely smooth all the way around. And again too, with this head that I'm using, I have a little bit of that schmaltz in there. Let's get that out. That UV2 has a little more play around the collar, or around the circumference of the drum. The collar is a little bit larger, I think. I don't know that for sure, but I certainly feel like it is. And so as a result, it just seems like that head sat really, really flat. And when it sits flat like that, that's a dream. Like if your head, when you put your head on, if it rocks at all, then you have a problem with your drum that needs to be addressed, and it doesn't happen with these drums. There's no play at all. I am going to clean this rim off a little bit. It's got on the underneath side of this rim, it's got all kinds of yuck from foam of that case. Yeah, oddly enough, this drum set has gotten more use this year than in previous years. And like I said, in 2021, it's going to go out a lot. I'll talk about what it is I'm doing in a few weeks, but especially once we're past the COVID stuff, and people can go out and enjoy themselves again. You might see Brian out a lot during the week, Fridays and Saturdays. You might see him playing a lot of different places, all over the place. So, all right, I think that's good. Now, let's grab this 12 here. All right. Yeah. So I can tell you definitely the G2 is a snugger fit. I mean, just it is. It just doesn't, like when I set it flat on the drum, it's there and it's closer. I don't have as much room this way or that way or this way or that way or this. I don't have as much room to center this head as I do on that other one. That tells me that these UV drums are probably good on some of your vintage drums too. I do have a few drums around here. I've got one vintage kit that doesn't have Evans heads on it. It's one of the few that I have that doesn't have Evans heads because I couldn't fit a set of Evans heads on there. Cleaning products, plugs for wraps, rims. Cleaning products for, oh yeah, I got a cleaning product for you. Cymbal cleaning product that's actually going to get used probably tomorrow. If you go over to sessionace.com, oh, you couldn't have set me up for a better commercial. There are actually two different kinds of cymbal cleaner over on sessionace.com. And one is called Shine, and the other is called Shimmer. Yeah. And Shine is great because it lifts the dirt out of the pores of the cymbal. It doesn't touch the patina of the cymbal. Its only job is to get the gunk out of your cymbal. And I've done a few test videos that you can find online for that. Shimmer is a new product that just came out, in the middle of all this COVID stuff. How about I use my pattern? I told you, my Y pattern. And it's a different kind of product. With Shine, you spray it on, let it foam up, let the solution pull the dirt out of the cymbal, and then you rinse it off. Using hot water is always best. And it literally scrubs the cymbal. This new product is different in that it will take almost anything off of a cymbal. I don't want to use another product's name because it's similar, but it's not. If you've ever used Groove Juice, you know that can do some really cool stuff as far as getting your cymbals clean. But it also has a lot of other problems, especially the problem that you shouldn't breathe that stuff. If you knew what was in that stuff, you wouldn't breathe it at all. You probably wouldn't buy it. It's not the healthiest thing for you to be using. In fact, if you look, they actually have to. I shouldn't talk bad about a product like that. They wouldn't talk bad about mine, I hope. Our products are all, I want to say organic, if that's the right word. I can tell you that we don't have to have any special, I don't know if I can say these kind of things. I've never been the brand owner for a product to know what I can and can't say about other people's products. We don't have to have any kind of hazardous warnings on our stuff. And even as as hard as this new product works, it's still made of really natural organic chemicals, so we don't have to put any kind of warning on our stuff. Anyway, with the new product, you basically can just spray it on, wipe it off. You don't have to rinse it. The only thing about this new product, it's so good, it will take your logos and your ink and stuff off. So I've got some paint on these cymbals that I know that Shine's not going to take care of. That's where Shimmer's going to come in. Shimmer will take this paint right off. But it should leave the clear coat on these cymbals alone. Now, as far as wraps and rims, Windex. Just Windex some stuff. If you want to use something that doesn't have ammonia, there's similar products to Windex that don't have ammonia in them. You can use those, and those are pretty safe. But most of the time, I'm just, especially rims and things, I'm just cleaning them with Windex. It's a little low. Tad low. All right. Let's see. Holy moly. I don't know if this microphone on my face is making any real good representation of what that sounds like, but I'm done. I don't need to do anything else to that drum. I could record with that drum. I could carry this drum out on a gig and feel completely good about it. I don't have to do anything else to this drum. To me, not only is that a sign of a good head, that's the sound of the right head for that drum. The sound that was in my head, which is a little bit of that bark that you get out of a concert tom, that little bit of a bark in the attack with a little bit of that warmth and resonance that you get from the reso head, that's the sound. Now the pitch isn't right, but we're going to fix that. Remember what I just told you? I just told you that even though these are suspension mounts and they're supposed to sound the same on the stand as they do off, they don't. They don't sound the same. I can't tell you why. I don't know. That's above my pay grade. I just know that there's some weird wang in there that wasn't there before. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check my heads, both sides, and I'm going to make sure that it's not a problem with maybe something that kind of slipped a little as I was going. Sounds a little low, maybe. Yep. Okay. And yeah. All right, so I don't know if you're going to hear the difference, but that's off the drum. I am going to bring this bottom head down. So I'm going to show you the difference a bottom head can have. All right, so this, it's the sound. I need the pitch to be lower, though. Most people are going to reach for the top head and bring the pitch down on that. I like where that is. I like the tension of it. I like the tuning of it. I'm going to lower the bottom head a little. So to let you hear the difference, here's the pitch of the top head. Boom, boom, boom. 2. Boom, 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 boom. Somebody with better pitch recognition can tell me what the intervals are there. But that's as low as I want to go there. To be able to get lower in my pitch bend and lower in my overall perceived pitch of the drum, This head's got to come down. So a few things are happening here. It's getting a little wangy. I may have to come up on this one to get the wang out of it, though. Again, this is going to change it's going to change the overall pitch. That took the wang out of it. I'll go just a little bit more. Maybe I can. I mean, I'm just barely pushing the key just to put a little more tension on it at that point. All right. See what happens when we put it on the stand. Right there, all of a sudden, so this mount, even though it's a suspension mount and it's supposed to keep that from happening, it ain't keeping that from happening. It's changing. The sound of the drum changes as soon as it hits that stand. So what do you do? What do you do besides buy a new drum set? No. No. I'm going to look at the relationship of the heads and see if there's anything I can do to change what's happening. Just change the interaction of everything. Now, maybe somebody that's watching has a better... See, that's just like... That's great. In fact, I've tuned it down enough that it's got more resonance to it. I'm going to not put it quite as far down on the stand, on the arm a second. Let's see. You tell me. What makes that happen? It actually brought the pitch up. Yeah. That shouldn't do anything different. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come up with this a little bit. So the rest of the tuning I'm going to do on the stand. Because obviously the interaction with the stand has something to do with the sound of the drum. So now the only problem, that's starting to sound better. But the pitches are too close together. I had a better spread with it off of the stand. So we're going to bring the whole thing down. Keep bringing it down. And like I said, you know, this drum set, I'm still, even though I've had it for a few years, even though I've had it for a few years, I'm still getting to know this drum set. I've used it more in the last probably 4 months than I have straight time, just using it continually than I have at any other time that I've had this drum set. It helps that I've got a few to choose from, but okay. That's got a little wang in it to me because it's so low. But again, let's see when I put it on the dang stand, what is it going to do? All right, so now I'm just futzing around with it till it falls right into place. Now I'm looking for the magic lug. About as low as I can get on this top head. There we go. The one thing I'll say about the UV2s, just like the UV1s, which camera am I going to? If you want a drum with a lot of attack, I don't know what it is that's different about these drums. The kick drum head I've got on my USA Customs, and the purple ones, and it's the most attack I've ever had on a bass drum. In fact, I've sort of got it set up almost like a Gadsden-y kind of sound where it's got a lot of attack. It's got plenty of low end and stuff, but it's got a sandbag in it, and it's a mesh front head that I've doctored up so I can get a mic in there. Something I hadn't talked a whole lot about. That may be a product one day, but it's the most attack I've ever had. The UV1s and the UV2s both have more attack to them. There's more snap to the attack than on any of the other heads. And again, for the sound I'm going for that I know that I'm trying to get to, more attack is better. So, all right, now we've got to change places to change the 14. We're actually going to go across the room. Like in my description, I said we're going to use the brand new. I hooked up a 5th camera just really quick, just because I wanted to be able to get out from behind the drums to work on these other two, because these floor toms are, they're floor toms. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a second, and I'm just going to move across the room, and we'll swap the camera too. So we'll just take all of this. I've got to move this. I've got to move my shoot. I got to move my little scene changer thing here. And I got to put my laptop over there so I can read if somebody types a question. And we're going to move the drum. So a lot happening. If you're sticking around for this, I really appreciate you. This is either riveting television for you, or the most boring thing. If you're my wife, is the most boring thing you probably have ever watched. Don't hit the microphone, Brian. All right. Oh, there we go, the corner camera. Now, I have one thing I can tell you. Oh, I didn't grab my laptop. I don't know if the audio is in sync on this camera, so that's the one thing I didn't check. It may be a little out. So I'm going to bring this over here so that you and I can talk. If you got a question, I'll look down every once in a while and look and see if anybody puts a question in. John, if you got a question, anybody's got a question, feel free to put that in. So, all right. So welcome to the other corner of my live room. And we're going to take this is a 14-inch floor tom, and I think it may be short. I don't know. I have to get a tape measure out to see. It feels like it's shorter than my other 14-inch floor toms by like an inch. And as a result, I will tell you that one of the characters of this particular... Well, I have my key with me. One of the characters of this floor tom is that it really kind of bridges the gap between a rack tom and a floor tom a little better than most of the other drum sets that I've got. It really sits kind of perfectly sonically in between those two. It sounds kind of like a rack tom, but it sounds kind of like a floor tom. And all that shuffling, heck if I know what I did with my fancy dancy Evans drum key. But guess what? had them send me a few drum keys. So anyway, we'll open a brand new Evans drum key. You can never have enough drum keys. I don't know if your mother told you or not, but you can never have enough drum keys. Drum keys or snare drums. Yeah, this one I've used for about the last 2 months. I've used this kit on a ton of sessions, and we've been able to make this head combination work on this drum. But honestly, I don't think this drum liked this combination of the EC2 on the top and a G1 on the bottom. I don't think it liked it at all. It just had to futz around with it too terribly much to get a sound that worked. And it wasn't the drum's problem. Again, the weird spiritual part of me that thinks that, you know, there's a soul in most anything except for computers and Mark Zuckerberg is everything has its own frequency it wants to vibrate at. You know, maybe it's not a soul, but it definitely has its own frequency it wants to vibrate at. Quite literally with a drum, and I just don't think that it really liked this choice of heads. Even though it works on so many other drums, for some reason this 14 did not like it. As a result, it acted like a temperamental child most of the time, and didn't want to tune up for me very well. So same thing here with the EC2s. Or the EV2s. I'm just trying to find where the flattest center is right there. That's perfect. And then we're just going to slap that bad boy right back on there. And as I've said before, and I'll say it again in case you just jumped in on this whole deal, you want to make sure that, number one, when you're pulling the heads off, if you need to clean your bearing edges and clean the drum, clean that thing. If there's any debris, if there's any dirt, if there's any schmutz that's sitting on the bearing edge, like that case I had that was shedding some foam. You know, if there was something weird that kind of got in there, you want to get rid of that stuff. You want the head to sit as flat as you can across that bearing edge. And also, when you're putting the head on, unless it's such a tight fit that it's only going to go on one way, and then you got to ask yourself, why is this head so tight around this drum? Is the drum out of round? And in the case of these drums and heads I've put on them before, it wasn't that the drum was out of round, it's that the wrap they used on these new classics is a little thicker than I think most wraps, and they it made it really temperamental in terms of finding the right head combination that would actually go down all the way on this thing. In fact, they've cut on this drum is the first time I'd ever seen it. They cut the I want to say lacquer, the wrap a little further back from the top of the drum than most other drums I've ever seen, and I think it totally had to do with that, the fact that it was harder to get a drum head on it. So, but not all drums are like that. Most drums are not. Most of the time, if your head isn't sitting on the drum, or it doesn't go all the way down on the drum, or it's too snug, it may be that there's something wrong with the drum. I can already tell you, even not tuning it, this already is heading in the right direction. Just one tap, and I'm like, okay, that's close to what I was thinking it was going to do. Let's just see, just so far. It does not like that bottom head. I think it has something to do with the bottom head. I think it doesn't like that bottom head. All right, so like I was telling you before, I'm going to tune. I normally would keep this in that spot, but I'm going to tune this higher. Let it stretch out a little bit. Come on. this key has a magnet in it that can hold it on there. The only problem is the magnet holds it on there. Sometimes you go to take that off and it doesn't want to come off. All right, so now this floor tom does have an even number of tension rods. And so I'm going to start at the one closest to me and go directly across. And then you can either go to the next set or you can do an X pattern. So if this is the pair that I'm working on, I go completely perpendicular to that path to go to the next pair. And then way higher than I would probably ever tension this. But that's fine because I want that thing to stretch out a little bit. You can see on here, the last session I did, I put a big old piece of gaff tape on there, trying to calm this thing down and get it into a place that I felt like it was sitting okay. And that worked for a little while. But like a temperamental child, this thing did not want to do what it was supposed to do. And what did I do? I just kept giving it lollipops and telling it how good a boy it was, and the whole time just going, please, I hope nobody else notices how badly this drum is acting. Oh, Lord have mercy. Anyway. I hope you're doing well. I haven't checked to see how much battery I've got left on this mic. I've got 2 bars. I'm good. So, I know you're probably finding this riveting entertainment, and Evans is probably face-palming going, why would anybody sit and listen to this guy just meander for more than an hour while he changed drum heads? Well, what else am I going to do? I don't listen to music while I tune drums. It interferes with my ability to hear the pitch. And oddly enough, other than my own talking, I can't listen to anybody talk while I'm tuning drums. Something about the pitch of people's, I don't think it liked that head. I don't know what it is about that head. Even though this head is still pretty good, I think I'm going to throw this head out. I don't know. Something about that head. That drum didn't like that head for a reason. And I think it may be something to do with the head itself. Yeah, see, already I can do what I couldn't do with that other head. I can spin this thing around. And I'm putting the logo for the head right where the logo of the drum is. That's just a little OCD thing that I have to do on my floor toms. And hopefully I did it on this other because I didn't think about it. I was too busy talking. Otherwise, we're going to have to change that. On my rack toms, much to the chagrin of many of my friends, I put the logo wherever the tom mount is. And because sometimes I'll use a 12 with the mount going from this side and one coming from this side. So there is no putting the logo at the top with how I set drums up and what configurations I use. So just as some sort of constant, I just put the logo where the mount, the tom mount is. In case of my floor toms, usually the logo goes right. The logo for the head, that could probably use a little bit of Vaseline on it there. The logo for the head goes wherever the logo for the drum is. Doesn't really make any difference other than I just like the look of it. All right, so that's hand tight. I'm going to pick this lug that's right in front of me here, right next to the logo, and then half turn in an X pattern on this next pair, half turn. Pick the next pair to it, and I'm going to have to go more than a half turn because now I've got some tension on the drum, and it takes a second for it to catch, and then this is the next pair. So after that, on the floor toms, after I get that half turn, usually I've got enough tension to get pitch. Oddly enough, it's actually pretty well in tune already. I had such a problem with this bottom head on the last drum. I'm going to leave this for a second and just see. maybe we stumbled into what this drum wants. I think when I tune this head back down, we're going to be in business. That right there, just that tone from this super, super tight head here, let me know. I think this bottom head is going to cooperate with us. So, again, put a lug in front, put a tension rod in front of me. I'm going to go down. I don't know. That's not a half turn. That's more like a quarter turn. Quarter turn all the way around so that I've slacked it out. Keep going. And don't ask me why, but sometimes I'll do a different order as I get tension into the drum. Cool. All right. Now it's completely out. In fact, you know what? Let's just, there we go. Let's see how far down we are. Yeah. These tension rods are short, man. Like, I feel like I should get a little bit more tension into the, or a little more rod into the lug before it starts getting to that tension. Hear that where that's a little down? That's high. So I got it back in tune with itself pretty close, and then I'm going down again. Like normally with longer tension rods, this would be about where I feel like it's really sitting in, but I'm seeing where there's a little bit of a wrinkle in here. I just think it needs longer tension rods. One thing I've noticed, when you hit a node that's right for the drum, there tend to be fewer overtones. It tends to be a purer tone when you hit a spot the drum likes. All right, so we're getting low. That rattling you're hearing is the legs. Now we just gotta tighten up whatever is a little off. That's a little down. A little down. So is the pitch I'm trying to tune to, but this one so that's obviously got to come up. I'm gonna bring the one directly across from it up a little too. Now I brought those up, but what did it also do? It brought the whole thing up. So I'm gonna make sure that's nice and solid, and then I may have to bring a few things down to meet it. Let me get close enough where you maybe hear it good. It's a little low. That brought that up again. Sometimes when I hit it with a key, it doesn't give me, it gives me too much of the overtone. So I just kind of flick it with my finger just to get a little bit of vibration happening. All right, let's check that bottom head, make sure it's in tune real good. I feel like it's just a shade down. That's pretty close. If anything, I'm going to end up bringing the top head up or down to try and get where I need to go. So I'll stick with that. See how easy that was? It wasn't really all that difficult at all, was it? It's something about finding the right heads for the drum. It makes the job a lot easier. I had to futz with that thing for, 20-something minutes once I got the heads on to get something usable out of it. So that's pretty promising. All right, I don't know if it's the right height. We'll find out. Let me go back over here to the corner, out of the corner. I thank you for joining me here. If ever there was a drum corner, it's that one. All right. I'm going to get this, I'm going to swap scenes to this other camera, and we're going to see about getting this back in place. And then the logo goes to the outside. So yeah, this kit, especially once we add the 8 to it, it's going to look pretty on stage. It's going to be so pretty. Yeah, it's too high. So let's adjust these floor tom legs now to get this drum where it needs to sit. There's a reason I didn't pull both of these off at the same time. Still feels high right there. All right, so I had that drum in a spot that felt like it felt good to me. That's going to be too high. Here, the relationship of these pitches, bing, bing, bong, boom. It's just a shade high. Just a shade high. So first thing I'm going to try and do is we're going to try taking this down just a skosh. And I'm just ever so slightly moving the key. How about I get this off here so I don't hear the wang. So yeah, so again, it's what is the sound that I'm looking for? There's a sound I'm going for that I'm getting in the ballpark with this head combination in a way that I have not gotten before. We're going to try and bring this bottom head down. I think I can go down even more. Oh, nope. See, that's where I'm talking about having a longer key, because if I go ever so slightly on this, all of a sudden it's loose. So lets me know that there's only so low I'm going to be able to get this. With this length of tension rod. So maybe add another 1/4 inch to the tension rod. I'll have to call Andy and ask him. That one's got some weird overtone to it, so let's let it settle in. Here, that one's a little high. I'm gonna have to come up with that one, I guess. See how close we are. I think that's going to do it. Let's see. Still. So now when I feel like I've got the thing in tune with itself pretty well, but it still has something that's, I think it's that one. Nah. Hear how one tension rod can change the whole sound. Oh, okay. Get that wang out. I don't know how it sounds in this mic, because it may sound great, it may sound awful, I don't know. I still think I'm going to have to end up putting a little bit of gel on this floor tom. Yeah, it just takes a little something out that's there. Let's try a bigger one. That I think is just the quality of the head. Let that stretch out a little bit more and come back to it. It's definitely stretching out. There we go. Okay, it's starting to fall into place. Again, there's a that drum doesn't have the quality of sound that I'm looking for. It's the head choice. The tuning range is right, but it's the head choice. So I'm going to go back over there, and we're going to take care of the 16. So I can do this without knocking everything around. between mic stands and everything else. Lug locks on the toms. No, I don't do lug locks on the toms. I don't do lug locks at all. I've got some, and I've got those tuna fish things or whatever. Come on, refresh so I can go to my other camera. Well, as soon as it refreshes my pad here, we will. Oh, I shouldn't hit the refresh button. While I'm waiting for that to refresh, so I can go over to the corner cam. No, lug locks, I definitely don't use them on the toms because, well, I just don't. The only place I would probably ever use a lug lock would be on the floor tom, because that's, usually the whatever tension rods are closest to me are the ones that are going to come out of tune, and it's going to be either from hitting the drum so hard, or sometimes I'll hit the rim when I'm hitting a floor tom to get the attack of the rim on some sound, and that's what's going to knock it out. Usually, with a floor tom, if it bottoms out or something, I just hit it with a key and tune it up. No, I don't worry too much with the lug locks. Just never had really good luck with them. If I have on a snare drum, especially on a live gig, if every single song I'm having to crank up the same tension rod, which is usually 7 o'clock, the one that's at 7 o'clock, right where my left hand comes down, I may put a lug lock or one of those tuna fish things on there to keep it in place. But more often than not, what I've had happen is, and it's usually because I'm hitting pretty hard, either on a session or a live gig, more live gigs, generally what happens is I'll split a head at that point, because then I'm taking whatever relief is getting transferred by that tension rod coming out, I'm taking it away, and then the head just is not gonna handle it. I don't break a lot of heads. It's usually because of something like that, or maybe the head was just defective anyway, which that happens from time to time. Not as much. There was a time there with Evans where I got heads I wasn't happy with, but with the exception of that one sitting on the floor over there, I haven't had that happen in a long time. Let's see, EV2. Yeah, that's about the only time I use a lug lock, is if I just keep having one that's a problem. It just keeps coming out, and I'm tired of having to retune it every song. Or I will take the other time, I keep them in a bag and I use them. If I've got a producer that is driving me nuts about the pitch of the snare drum from take to take, and if the pitch gets too far out and they're doing any kind of comping, you may hear a difference in the sound of the snare drum. I find most people don't hear, as long as it's not more than half a step. Most people don't hear if a snare drum detunes a little bit. But I have some producers that I've worked for that are so anal retentive about the pitch of that snare drum once we get it right, that, yeah, I'll have to throw some lug locks on there. And it does a pretty good job of keeping it there for the duration of the session, or at least the duration of the tracking of that particular tune. So, but you're talking 5% of the time, not very much. All right. So this whole process, exact same. This floor tom is a really good floor tom. This particular size is good for a floor tom. It really is. It's a 16 by 16, I believe. I've got a 16 by 14 in another kit that's kind of cool too. But usually for that that really low growl. Yeah, the 16 by 16 is the way to go. Should probably take a drink of water. I'm getting a little parched. And if I really have problems with a kit and I'm not able to tune it well, or like a couple of months ago, I had a remote recording session that I was kind of tweaked about a lot of other things that were going on. I was having to do a little bit of music direction and worrying about other players. And it was for a video shoot as well. We were capturing everything live for a video shoot, so recording and video at the same time. Just so much. And so I had my buddy Shannon come in and just let him handle tuning duties, because that just gives me one less thing to have to worry about. And he's faster than I am with this. I don't know about changing heads, because I don't think we've ever sat and changed heads together. Let's see. Comments, relationship between different rims. Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, the thing that you have to definitely know is that die-cast rims and wood rims are going to affect the sustain of the drum. And so some of these double ply head choices on certain kits, I'm going to backtrack for just a second. All right, so my one magic lug, hear how that drum just doesn't have very much resonance, and all of a sudden I tighten this one tension rod, and now all of the resonance comes back into the drum. Anyway, back to what I was saying. Die-cast hoops they're gonna not choke the sound of the drum. They're gonna damp the drum a little bit. Let me use a different word. They're gonna focus the tone. So that's one reason why I like die-cast rims. That's why I like Gretsch drums. It's why, even though I've got a Brooklyn kit, it's not my first choice to go out and play with, because when I think of that great Gretsch sound, I don't think of Brooklyns, believe it or not. It's a great sound. That's why I've got one of the kits. It does what it does. It's a more open sound. The 302 hoops on there have more open sound. So no matter what head choice I use, it's always going to sound more open than a USA Custom or these new classics. So automatically there, it's going to be a more open sound. You probably have a lot more leeway with the triple flange hoops, especially on toms, with any kind of head choice than you do with these. This whole double ply top, double ply bottom is kind of an experiment that's working out for me so far. Normally I wouldn't think it would work. On a triple flanged hoop tom, I wouldn't really even give it any thought. I'm sure it would work. With wood hoops, I almost always use single ply heads, because it just seems like anything treated or anything double ply on a wood hoop drum just immediately just goes to nothing. It just has no tone for me. I'm going to leave that there for now. It just has no tone. Other people may differ, but that's what I think. So usually if I'm using any kind of, whether it's a snare drum or it's a toms, I've got one set of these drums out in the hall that have wood hoops. It's a 26-inch bass drum with a 13-inch floor tom, or 13-inch rack tom, 16-inch floor tom, and I've tried a lot of different heads on those. Single ply heads were the only thing that really worked on it. I could put double ply heads on it, but it just didn't. It was like hitting a tabletop kind of. That's about how much tone I got out of it. The bass drum didn't too much matter, but the toms definitely mattered. Snare drums, same kind of thing. Single ply head almost always is the only thing that works for me. But see, the thing about it is there's so many different combinations of things that go into the sound of this drum that I know people like to say that they can guess on what things are going to do or sound like, but honestly, I don't think you know until you try it. And that's the expensive part of this for most people. If you've got to buy your heads at a store every time you need to do something, I'm lucky that I've been with D'Addario since '97, so I don't have to pay as much for heads. I mean, I still pay for heads, but I don't pay as much for them. But I'm able to experiment. And if this head combination didn't work, I had ordered some other things that would possibly work. So I had some options sitting in the hall that I could go to if this little experiment didn't work. And so far, I'm happy with this little experiment. Logo's right there. So that logo's going to go right there. Oh, one thing I want to check while I get this off of here. Okay. Yeah, that G2 is just a little snugger fit. So I would tell you, try some UV1s if you're having problems with getting your head onto the drum. It's definitely got a little bit wider berth to get it in there. But going back to what I was saying, not just whether a shell is maple, it's how it's constructed. It's who made the shell. All the Japanese companies, their stuff sounds different to me, save one thing. The new Tama Stars that are out they sound like Gretsch drums. But if you look at what they are, which is I think they're maple gum maple with die-cast hoops, it's a Gretsch drum. It's made like an old Gretsch drum. With the exception of those, most all the Japanese drums have a sound. They're kind of in a family of sounds, whereas American drums made with the same materials have a different sound to them. And if you just put single ply coated heads on, a Star Classic kit, single ply coated heads of the same sizes, same dimensions, and everything on a Ludwig kit, single ply coated heads on a Gretsch kit, they're all gonna sound different because, well, the Gretsch is gonna sound different because of the die-cast hoops and the maple gum. The difference in the Ludwigs, maybe the bearing edges, depending on how they're cut, I guess. But the main difference is it's just a different shell, even though it's the same stuff. Maybe the same plies, they may both be maple. It's just different. So there's a lot that goes into it. And, ultimately it's the reason why you should choose the drums that you play, in terms of a brand. I had this conversation with Andy Shreve from Gretsch up at Forks one day. We were talking a little bit about this, and he was talking about all these exotic things they're trying to roll out with Gretsch. And the one thing that they have to be careful of, unlike, say, DW, is that all of the exotic stuff that they do, I think they did like a zebra wood drum set or something here not too long ago, it still has to have what you would consider that great Gretsch sound. There's a timbre to everything out of that family that they have to keep that in mind when they're making a drum. And I think it's the same thing like with Tama. Like if you have a Tama kit, you probably, all right, we got to work on that. That's poo. If you've got a Tama kit, you probably picked it because one of your favorite drummers played Tama, but it's really more like the style of music that player plays fits in with the sonic properties of that drum set. So for me, like when I would say out of the 14 kits that I've got, most of them are Gretsch kits. I have one Ludwig Maple Classic kit, which is the first professional kit I ever bought for myself with my own money. And the only reason I bought a Ludwig as opposed to a Gretsch, I'm going to work on that top hit too, was price. I don't think my ear was trained as well at the time either. I'm going to stand up for this one, y'all. Sorry. I don't think my ear was as trained a tone in '98 when I bought that kit. That kit's 22 years old at this point. Isn't it? Huh. But the difference between this Ludwig kit I've got, that's a 20-inch kick drum, 10, 12, 14-inch toms, and a 5x14 snare drum, it was like $1,800 at the drum shop versus like $3,200 for the exact same thing in a Gretsch. I just didn't have the money. It's not that the Ludwigs were better made. They were both about the same in terms of the quality of the build. It's just the price. I had to go completely on the price. Now, I love that drum set. I still will pull it out and use it for some stuff. It's in that movie I did several years back, Las Vegas, with Mary Steenburgen. That kit's in that movie. I love that kit, and we'll probably never ever get rid of it. But the other reason why I love it, besides being the first kit I bought for myself, is it has a thing that the Gretsch stuff doesn't do. There's a tone that it has that the other Gretches don't have. You know, my Gretches don't have. The other kit that I have that's not a Gretsch kit is that wood hoop kit. And the only reason I have it is because of what it is. That's a little high. It's a wood hoop kit with a 26-inch kick drum. And so, it's pretty close. Sounded pretty close. Now, thankfully, it's one of those PDP concept kits, which are surprisingly good drum sets, especially considering what I paid for it. And at least from a brand perspective, DW distributes the Gretsch stuff, and they're in, it's the same family essentially. And so, from a professional standpoint, I don't have a Gretsch endorsement yet. I haven't needed one. Hadn't been a reason for me to have one yet. But were that to be the case, then I would definitely be okay because it's the same family. Oh, the WFL kit I've got a vintage Ludwig WFL kit that my buddy Shannon found that was basically a museum piece. It looked like the day it was bought, and the vintage Ludwigs they sound different from a vintage Gretsch. I've got a 50s round badge kit in the other room, 3-ply. Supposedly the sound that the broadcasters make now, and the WFL and the round badge kit are from the same era, but they sound completely different. There's nothing about those two drum sets, even with the same heads on them, that sound exactly the same. They don't even sound close. It's not even, it's not like, well, that's kind of close. I guess they're different. No, they're wildly different. So, they each have a different personality, and it has everything to do with the soul of the drum. And if anybody tells me anything different, they're wrong. No, it's how they're made, how they've aged. But again, getting to know each of these drum kits, they have different personalities. They just like different things. And so, again, as soon as this refreshes, I'll get you out of the corner and put you back over here into the main part here. Come on, page refresh. While that page is refreshing, so I can get you back into the camera, get the height right on this thing. Well, come on. There we go. Sorry there. My tablet there did not want to swap over. So, just getting this other drum the right height. I have a feeling we're going to have to probably futz with it a little. Or not. I am going to put a gel on that just to focus it a little bit more. All right, I'm going to turn the mics. I'm going to turn this headset mic off a second. I believe everything's fired up on the overheads for the kit. And I'll let you hear what it sounds. Oh, it helps if I put the tom mics back on the toms, doesn't it? I'll let you hear what the mics are hearing. And then maybe I'll play for a second. Let's see. Without embarrassing myself here. So I can find, I don't want to like stick my butt in a camera or nothing. Let me get these mics back on these toms. That one's on the floor over there. All right, so yeah, battery's almost going on this. I'll have to change packs. Let me turn this pack off a second, and let's just hear what the mics are hearing on this setup. You kind of hear what it sounds like. That's one interval set that I'll reference sometimes when I've got 4 toms to make sure that I'm at least in the ballpark of the right intervals. So yeah, listen to the intervals. Little bit on that one tom, but yeah, I'll just play a little bit just to see how this thing is sitting. Yeah, but hopefully that gives you. I'll listen back to it and see how the mics. I don't have my ears in right now, so I don't know. Almost 1, 3, 5, 8 from low to high. Yeah. It's that's kind of the interval that just kind of makes sense for some reason. The starting bugle of a horse race, is that what that is? Anyway, I may dial that in just a little bit more, really centered in, but that's just that quick, get it that close. That's the closest I've gotten that drum to being right, just slapping a new set of heads on there. So I'm already encouraged. The thing oddly enough about this combination of the UV2 on the top and the G2 on the bottom is it sounds woodier, at least in the room. Again, I'm going to have to listen back to the recording of this live stream to hear what the mics are hearing because I don't have my ears in. But in the room, this is the most woody this drum set has ever sounded. It sounds more classic. You know, the name of the dang drum set's the new classic. Well, it has always sounded more new than classic to me. But now that's different. Now, all of a sudden, it sounds like a classic drum set. I'll be interested to see what happens with that 8-inch tom once I pull it up and get it in line with the live setup. But hopefully that gives you some idea. I'm going to let these things sit. The other thing that, for some reason, again, it's the elves. Man, I'm telling you, it's the elves. They'll come in here overnight with this drum set, and I'm gonna just make sure that I didn't knock anything out of tune, that everything's relatively in tune before I leave it for the night, and then I'm just gonna let it sit. And it's something, Santa's elves or that shoe cobbler guy and the fairy tale, his guys. Somebody will come in here. I'll come in the next day, and it will just have settled. Something will have settled when those heads get to sit on there, and just everything gets to coalesce. That's the part of this that I feel spiritual is the only word I can say about it. Spirituals, yeah, there you go. Elves, exactly. Spiritual is the only thing I can say about it. It's some kind of intangible thing that just the elves get into this thing, and the heads get a chance to commune with the wood and the drum, and everything gets to sit. And that's the most encouraging I've felt about these toms since I've had them. And I've had this kit now for at least 7 or 8 years, 6, 7 years. I have to look at the receipt. I've had this kit a while. This is the best I've felt about it the whole time with this particular configuration. So, that gives you some idea. For me, the UV2s, one of the considerations other than tone is durability, because this is about to get relegated to being a live kit. It will probably live in cases for most of the next year and not get unpacked. It'll just be sitting by the door ready to go for the next thing, because God willing and the creek don't rise, once the COVID thing's over, I'm going to be doing a couple of different things that may have me out most weeks for at least a day or two worth of gigs. And this will be the main kit for one particular gig, and I think it's going to be perfect for it. It's going to be just enough of that classic sound and just enough of that modern sound to meet the demands of this gig that I'm about to start doing. And so UV2s, my first impressions, they tune up really easy. If they're anywhere nearly as durable as the UV1s, I'll probably keep these heads on these drums for at least a year, maybe more, unless I have a gig that I just beat the snot out of them. But I've found through those UV1s, you can really hit, and it doesn't really leave much of a mark. If I pulled one of these USA Customs out, and I've had those UV1s on there for probably 6 or 8 months, and they look brand new. They don't even hardly have a scratch on them, and they've been played a lot. So I'm not sure what they do with this UV1 coating or the UV2 coating. I'm not sure what they do to make it do what it does, but again, it's the elves, man. It's magic. So anyway, I hope you got something out of that. That's my process, really, and it's not just a tuning process. It's a relationship, communing with the drum set process. I feel like I got to know this drum set, this part of this drum set a lot more tonight. Um, I've got to know this drum set in relationship. Like, this snare drum is not going out with this kit. I'm going to have to pick a different snare drum to go with this kit, because this is not the sound that needs to match with that. That's part of that relationship. It's sort of casting for a movie, a musical movie of sorts. And I feel like I've gotten to know these drums a little bit better just by spending time with them, trying a new head combination, spinning the key for a little bit, and I'm sure I'll spin it a little bit more tomorrow. And so what I encourage you to do is, if it's time for you to rehead your drums, maybe do that thing where you get 2 or 3 different options on top heads, and try that first. If you haven't changed your reso heads in a long time, those make a big difference in the sound. Part of the woody sound of this that I'm getting right now is that G2 on the bottom. That's part of what's giving it that focused warmth, is that double ply coated head on the bottom. I'm sure of it. And so I'm sure of it because I heard that same drum with a single ply head and I didn't like the sound. So yeah, it's one of those where you're gonna have to play around and find. Some drum sets may have 2 or 3 different combinations of heads that they like a lot. Many of my other drum sets, they'll take a few different things. This kit, this is the first time I feel like it's really settled into what it likes. So I'll make a mental note that, at least for the time being, this kit likes this kind of head combination, and that's what will live on them. If I decide, a year from now to change the bottom heads out, I'm going to put the exact same thing that's on there now, just newer. When I beat these in after a year's worth of gigs, we'll put some UV2s on there again and get right back to the sound. So that's everything I got for you. I appreciate you if you've hung out for any amount of time. John, I really appreciate you for hanging out. It seems like you've been here most of the evening. I really appreciate you. And yeah, that's everything I got for. I'm going to clean up a little bit and make sure these are slightly more in tune than they are right now, just to let them sit. But then I'm headed to bed. I got to get up and do about a dozen charts tomorrow for a gig. So that's pretty much everything. Thanks so much. Appreciate you hanging out. And hey man, thanks, John. If you're watching from YouTube, and I haven't been able to see comments from YouTube, I don't think. Thanks for watching. If you're catching it on the playback or the VOD, the on demand, feel free to leave comments or questions. Anything that you think, any tips that you have, what combination of heads do you like for your drums? What have you found that works? What drums you play, and any of that good stuff. Let me know. And that's everything I got for you. So good night, and I guess